Let's talk about how to make custom tooltips. Alright, so to create our custom tooltip, I've gone ahead and I've got a button here that I'm using as my example. And inside of the inspector, I've just gone ahead and head down to the tooltip section here and added in the text that I wanted to have. In my case, just to show you that this can work with BBCode, I'm using BBCode. This way you can have, well, you can customize your tooltips whatever way that it is that you specifically would like. I know there's people out there that have wanted to or have written posts about complaining that they can't do BBCode for tooltips. Well, I'm going to show you how you can do that by creating your own. Right, so all I've done is take my button here, I've set the text, and I've given it a script. This script is where our custom tooltip is going to lay, and you could take this function that we're going to be using and adding it into any script, or put it in its own standalone script that you can just add on to anything that needs a tooltip and nothing else. That's perfectly fine as well. Let's go ahead and take a look. Alright, so all you can see here, we're extending the button and we just have a function here called _make_custom_tooltip. And this takes an argument. You can name it whatever you want. I just have for text. That's obviously going to be a string, and we need to return an object. Now, for text, automatically it's going to be whatever we typed here in the tooltip. So whatever we put inside this box is going to be passed in for this variable here, for this argument. Alright, so just to show you the basic setup. Alright, so I just went ahead and went to return there just so I can get rid of that error, and I'll show you. We go ahead and do this. We hover over, we just have the normal tooltip. We can see the BB code written in there. That's not exactly what we want. We want the code of it, right? We want it to be displayed as BB code with all the effects and colors and maybe displaying images and whatever it is you want to do with BB code for your tooltips. But you can see by default, this all perfectly works just fine. All right. So we have the default setup. So what is it that we need? Well, we need to return an object. So we need it to have some type of object to return. And the thing that we need to return here, or that we're going to be returning, is going to be some kind of text. Now, the default tooltip is here with our label, is essentially what we're using here. Now, I'm just going to use I could just use the character L to represent my variable here. We are in a local variable. We're not going to get all too confused. We're only going to use it in this one little instance, so this would be perfectly fine. But I think I'm just going to go ahead and rename it. I'm going to call it tooltip label. All right, and by default, right, this is typed as a label, and we have a label.new. All right, we initialize our class. We have a new one, and we're going to be returning the tooltip label. Now, if we were to just leave it as this and we take a look, we're not going to get anything. You see, all of a sudden, our tooltip is empty. That's because we haven't set the text. So what we would need to do is now come in and go tooltip label.text equals our argument of for text. And if we run that and take a look, we can see we now have the default functionality of the tooltip. And that's fine, but I did say we were going to do custom tooltips, and that's not working. So what we're going to do is I'm going to change this to a rich text label, and we'll initialize one of those instead of a regular label. And just by doing that one thing alone, you can see, well, we can see that doesn't quite work. If you look closely, you can see there is something popping up there, but we can't see the text. And that's unfortunate. Why is that? Well, it's really small. So what we actually need to do is we need to set a minimum size for this rich text label. Right, so we can go ahead and get our tooltip label dot minimum size. Give me one moment here. Let's see. What did I use? Custom in here. So custom minimum size. And you can set that to a vector 2 of your choosing. As an example, I'm going to set it to 300 by 64. Just to show you it. And we take a look. I hover over. All of a sudden, it's there. But it's not BBCode. It's not working still. So curious, why is that? Well, if we were to look at a rich text label, in order to use BBCode, we have to actually enable it. So we need to do that to our custom tooltip here. So I'm just going to go ahead and get my tooltip label. And we're going to access BBCode enabled. Set that to true. And you can see we have very basic code here. Nothing advanced. It's all pretty simple. But now if we run it, now we have BBCode. It works. We've got the rainbow effect going. We've got the wave going. If you created your own rich text effects, maybe specifically for tooltips, you could use those. That's cool too. But you can see it works here, and we could pass in any of these arguments and optional parameters for things like rainbow and wave for the frequency, saturation, and all that fun stuff. And most importantly, we can use this for anything, right? So we can set colors, we can do bold, we can do underlines, we can do all of this fun stuff. So if all you want is a very basic, if all you wanted was to use BBCode for a tooltip, there you go. That's all you really need. Now you will have to keep an eye on that custom minimum size because it's obviously going to change based on the amount of text that you're going to be displaying. So one way that I would go about doing that is doing something such as picking or estimating, I guess I could say, a font size or font, the size of our font, not the font size, but like the amount of space that it's taking up. And we can do that. So before I set the minimum size, what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to get the font that I'm using. So I'm going to say var used font. Of course, it's going to be a font. And we're going to go ahead and get our rich text. Our tooltip label. Right. They get theme default font. Right. So now we have the font that we're using. If you're using a custom font, you can go ahead and apply that in and set that for your variable here if you wanted to go that way. But I'm just using the default font here, so this is how we're actually going to get that. And then we need to create another variable. I'm going to call this cmin for custom min, because we can't just call it min because we already have a property by that name. And again, this is just going to be a vector 2, and we can call this our used font dot get string size, and then pass in our text. So we could just pass in our before text argument that's passed in. If you wanted to, you can come in here and you can use maybe like regex and go ahead and strip out the BBCode tags. That way you have just the actual text, so you can get a better and more accurate size going in there. That is an option. Now we have that, and we can come in and now instead of setting this to a custom minimum size to a vector 2, we can specifically come in and give it the size of cmin, right? Custom min. We take a look. There we go. It works perfectly fine. Now you might have to again, modify this based off of how many lines you have going on. And all you would have to do is just modify the custom min y property and say multiply that by 2 for 2 lines. As an example, right? So we can come in custom min dot y times equals 2. And let's say we added another line. Here is my second line. We run it, we take a look. And we see we now have a perfect space for 2 lines. So you could add an exported variable to put into the inspector where you can just type in the amount of lines that your text is using. And you can go about it that way to do your multiplying. Now you can see all this extra space off on the right hand side. That is because this is, remember when we're getting our string size, we're taking into account our BBCode tags. So like the rainbow and wave are being calculated into this as well. That's why I would recommend either to have tweak that either through your code, just like we do with our y for the height, or use something like a regular expression to strip those things out. And you can have, that way you can have a more accurate box size, but it'll work. All right, so now that we have this working, and again, you can go through, search it out if you want to remove things, get new sizes, type in custom sizes as an export, right? Whatever the things that you want to do to ensure your size, you can go ahead and do that. But you might be wondering why we have this, or where this dark background comes from, if all we're doing is creating a label, rich text label in this case. And that's because the object that we return, right? Which in this case is just our tooltip label. Whatever object that is going to be put as a child inside of a pop-up panel. So what if we wanted to maybe customize our panel a bit? Well, we can do that as well. And what we're going to be looking at is a style box with this. So we're going to come in, and before we return anything, I'm going to just go ahead and create a new style box. It's going to be a style box flat. And I'll go ahead and type that here. There we go. And we're going to set the background color. In my case, I'm going with completely transparent. Of course, you can go with whatever colors that you want. And for the border, I know, let's go with this. All right, and we can take a look. We look at it, we highlight. Oh, look, nothing changed. Well, that's interesting. Why not? Well, that's because we actually have to use this theme as well. And to do that, all we do is we access the theme property on our button here. All right, so in my case, I'm creating a new theme because I don't have one on here. And I'm setting the style box with a panel, and specifically we're setting the tooltip panel, and we're passing in the style box we created for that specific property on the theme. So now if we take a look at it, we can see it is completely transparent. Now we don't really have any color in there. As for a border, like I was kind of hoping for in there, I'm just going to come in here and use style box, set border width all, and I'll just go ahead and pass in, let's say, a 4 for 4 pixels. And we take a look. Seems I was being a little bit of a goof. The alpha here on the end, I had it as 00. I need to set it as FF here. That way we can actually see it. And there you go. So you see now we have a transparent background, and we've just put a border around this. And of course this is pointed, so we could come in and we could customize this further, right? So we can now say style box dot corner radius, set corner radius all. let's say 10 pixels. And now when we run it, we take a look, we see we have our custom border, we have our round corners, and this is great, right? You can go like this, it's working great. You can, in my case, you see we have the transparent background, but you can change that to whatever color you wanted. You could do the borders, you could do all the stuff that you could do with themes. And of course, you could just create this theme on, say, button. If it already has a theme, you could already go in there and set this yourself. For me, themes are laggy. They've always been laggy. As soon as I open them, I don't know why. So for me, it's just faster to do it in code. But that's how you would do that. Now, what about completely custom ones? Like the one I showed you in the beginning. We had the Godot icon being used as a background in with our text. Well, to do that, that's going to be more of an advanced custom tooltip. Now, we don't really have to change this code here a whole lot. What we do need to do, though, is go ahead and create ourselves a scene. So if I go ahead and I open up my tooltip scene here that I created, and we can see here, I just have a control as my root node. You see I have my size here for that. I have my rich text label inside of it. That's just going to be holding, of course, our string. And I have a text direct as a child of my text. That way, regardless of how big the text is, that's what's gonna matter here, right? So let's say we're out all the way out like this, right? We can come in here and say ignore size, key, centered, aspect, right? Whatever it is that we're going to be doing. So if I have it on scale and ignore size, you see it's gonna, whatever image I'm using here is gonna stretch across my entire tooltip. So you get the idea here, right? We're gonna come in and create a scene for us to use here. All right, so you get the idea. Once you have your scene set up, go ahead and save it. Let's hit my Control S there to save this again. So I have my tooltip scene. I'm gonna go back into that script, and the difference is, well, instead of creating a rich text label here, what we need to do, of course, is first of all load our scene. So var tip scene, right? And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and load in my tooltip scene. All right. Now we need to create an instance of this, and this is where I'm actually going to create my, not the tooltip label quite yet. I'm going to say var tooltip. And this is going to be an instance. So in my case, it is a control for my root node, right? So I'm going to go ahead and grab that and go tip scene dot instantiate. Still wild that there's no autocomplete for that. All right, so now I can go ahead and I can get my tooltip label and set that. And all that's going to be, of course, is my tooltip dot get child 0. All right, so remember in my scene, control is my default. It only has one child, that's 0 index. That's going to be my label, and then that has a child, which is going to be our text direct. Right, so we got that, and now we want to get our background. So I'm going to say var bg. That is a text direct in my case, and we'll set that to tooltip label dot get child, and we'll pass in 0 for that. All right, so now we have our full scene being our tooltip. We have my tooltip label, and we have the background. All right, now what happens if we were to just run this? What are we going to get just by adding that in there? Well, nothing if we run that scene. If we run our actual scene, excuse me, give me the right script. In fact, I'll even close that one so it doesn't open up on us again. And we take a look, and well, we can see the red from the border, but our sizes are all wrong. That's curious. Why is that? Well, for starters here, we're still returning this tooltip label. remember, that's not what we want. We want to return the actual tooltip, right? The scene that we're recreated. So instead of returning tooltip label, we'll return our tooltip or instant scene. And if we take a look, okay, still looks about the same. All right, but that's because there's something that we haven't done. Let's see, let's take a look. We've set the BB code, we've set the text, we've got the font, we're setting our min, we're adjusting it for 2 lines, we're setting the minimum size of our tooltip label, then we're creating our style box after that. Oh, right, we're only setting the minimum size for 1 item. Let's set this for everything. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this, paste it down and paste it down again. So this is going to be tooltip and BG. So if we set those 2 sizes with us, there we go. Now we have our custom tooltips being completely created from the way we want it, right? Now, obviously, we don't need a border with this if we're going to do a custom scene. So I'll just hide that. Obviously, if you're doing a custom scene, you could just have your own border put in there, maybe as a 9 patch over the whole thing. But there you go. There's how you can do completely custom tooltips, whether you want to do something basic and just have BBCode in there and leave it still look like the default tooltip just with a little extra flair, or if you want to customize that little panel that it's inside of, or if you want to create a scene and have something completely custom, brand new and unique to your project. There you go. There's how you set all that stuff. And take care. Have yourselves a good one. I'll see you guys in the next one. And remember, if there's anything you guys want to see, you can always leave a comment down in the comment section. I was going to say you can leave a comment in the video. That doesn't make any sense. But you can leave a comment down below. And maybe it'll be the next video that we do. Who knows? All right, take care, everyone.